Okay, now with our animation done, we're going to run a new tool. You're very familiar with the JMS exporter, the tool that we use to export our models for levels. This time we're going to be using the CAD Animation Exporter Compact. This is very specific for a reason. It's one of the few tools that still works with 3D Studio Max 2013. If you have a very old version of 3D Studio Max, there are some other tools you can use, but this seems to be the only tool I found that can work with the newest version of 3D Studio Max. And it looks like so. Let's export to a file. And we see in our beacon folder, I've created a new folder called Animations. And I'm going to save it just as beacon. And leave it as a JMA file. You'll notice there are several other type of motion files, but JMA should work for our scenery just fine. You'll see it records it. That's all correct. So now we go on over to our Halo directory. Go ahead and open up Tool, and this time run Tool, Animations, Scenery, and the name of your scenery, just like before. You'll see Model Animation Compressed, save 0 bytes. So, here's where things get a tiny bit complicated. You're going to want to go to Gorilla, go and open, find your scenery, and open that Model Animations. When they updated 3D Studio Max, it broke several tools. You're going to need to do this in order to work with multi-part scenery. You can skip this step if you have a single frame, so you only have one part to your scenery. This is for trees and stuff like that. We have 2 parts, so we're going to have to do this trick, and we have several frames. What this trick involves is going to your model animations, scroll all the way down, and you'll see this thing called Node List Checksum. Go ahead and open your model, and you'll see the same thing at the top that says Node List Checksum. Now here's the problem. If these two aren't the same, this 14649 does not match this 3251, then when we import it into Sapien, it will say that the animations don't match. Too bad, you can't use this animation. So how do we fix this? It may come as a surprise, but the files you've been exporting from 3D Studio Max this whole time have actually been text files. So if we go over to beacon.jma and we go ahead and open it with some kind of text editor, Notepad will work as well, you'll notice near the top 14649, the exact same number that we found here. You're going to want to change that to the same number that's in your model. So we have 3251, and that's what we're going to change it to. Go ahead and save it. Remember to close these so that Gorilla doesn't interfere. Then go ahead and rerun the animation command. If you reopen your animations file, go ahead and verify that the node list checksum has indeed changed to the number you want. I also noticed that I managed to mess up my collision data along the way, so I'm going to go ahead and recreate my collision data. Remember, that's just collision geometry. I'm going to recreate my scenery that I messed up during the tests. So now we have our model, our animation graph, and our collision model. I'm going to go ahead and save this now again as our scenery object. Let's go to Sapien. Let's go ahead and add our beacon back to the scene. If you still have your beacon in the scene, you just have to refresh Sapien by closing it and reopening it. Let's place it in the center. And there we go. Doesn't that look very nice? We have ourselves a constantly animated, let me click out of here. Let me fix that and then click here. We now have a constantly moving animated object here. Very, very cool. Very interesting looking. We're now going to move on to the final step for this lesson, and that will be adding sounds.